Hi, everybody. How's it going? My name is Rachel. Welcome to the Power to You podcast, where we amplify the voices and choices of individuals with disabilities. I'm going to pass it over to my co-host, Matthew.
Hello, I am Matthew, and this is my buddy Marc.
Hi.
And we are joined with
Deb.
Welcome.
Thank you.
So, you're crazy.
Well, we
and
knew that.
It's my favorite story to tell about you, but I think you had a pain point in your life, and you had a frustration, and you decided to change how, not just your own situation, but to create something that changed the situation for a lot of people. And I think, I've had things in my life that are, and I think at a certain point you just kind of, you roll with it, or you adapt, and you accept the status quo, but you didn't. And
True.
But also, you had, forgive me for saying this so early into the podcast, but you had the balls to say that I don't like how this is, and I'm not gonna accept this for my son, for people like my son.
I'm one of 5, and all the other ones were male. So you learn something from those folks.
So there was some stubbornness from the very beginning.
Straight in there.
True.
So Marc was a little boy.
Marc, you were born a boy, weren't you?
Marc,
yes.
Now you're a grandpa, but.
And this is something I've learned. I've learned so much working on the Practice Without Pressure materials and everything about. I didn't know when it came to Down syndrome that there were comorbidities very common with the diagnosis.
Oh yeah.
Yeah,
lots.
A lot of disabilities. That's actually true. There's comorbidities very, very frequently in the disability community. It's usually not just one disability. It's usually a myriad of different things that affect your life in a lot of different ways.
And in Marc's case, he was born with a heart condition.
Yeah, and one thing I'm going to do right now, Marc, I just want to direct this to you, my dear son. We're going to do a lot of talking about you. Are you okay with that? You're going to pipe in when you can and when you want to? Absolutely. You usually always tell me it's okay to tell your story, but you know what? I'm going to always check. And you and your buddy Matt here. Thank you, Marc.
He's my co-host, introducing all the course sections on the e-learning course too. And
yes,
so
you are.
It's he and I, my partner in crime, Marc, quite often.
A-team over here.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, there we go. Or the
over here.
P team, the Power to Marc team.
Yeah, there we go. So Marc.
So yes,
Marc is little, and when you have a heart condition. From a very young age, he had to go to the hospital quite a bit.
Marc was in the neonatal intensive care unit for 4
from a very,
weeks,
very early age.
From a very early age, like a couple hours old.
Wow.
Okay. So, Marky boy, when you were born, this part of the story you don't remember, and Rachel, you were not even a thought at that point. Not even a thought. No. Marc, just so you know, Marc has 2 sisters younger than him. Marc's my first.
Sassy.
So we were Sassy and Rachel. Marc's going to chime in here whenever he feels the need, right?
We're used to that.
Yeah, that's true. We're used to that. Our audience may not be, so y'all are going to see this is how we do things here. Marc had major heart issues. You did, buddy? Yep, he's going to show you. As we go through this, he had what's called endocardial cushion defect. It's 2 holes in his heart, the upper and lower chambers. And he also had his mitral valve was very malformed. He had gut issues. He had eye issues. And it was pretty tough. Marc was born in a local community hospital in New Jersey and was transported. You were born about, 1 o'clock in the afternoon, buddy, and by the evening he was transported to a regional trauma center.
Wow.
Where I shouldn't say trauma center, it's been a long time now, but a regional intensive care for neonatal intensive care unit. So.
Well, and you're barely recovering from
I had a
giving
C-section.
birth. Okay.
Oh, yeah.
So
I wasn't recovering.
You were not at your best,
No.
and you're having to make decisions. And yeah.
Marc's dad was right there. Right, buddy? You good? This is traumatic to hear for Mark too, right, buddy? It's okay.
It's a little traumatic to listen to. I think it's a lot.
Yeah.
Well, and we talk about a baby doesn't have any say and doesn't we talk about giving people a voice and just trying to exist. Right?
It's interesting
for
that
12
you say
minutes
that.
old.
It's interesting that you say that, Matt, because Mark's dad looked at me at one point real early on, and he said to me, "You got to remember something. He's got to deal with what we choose," and it was really powerful. And it was real. You never knew that.
I never knew
that.
No,
yeah, your dad. Mark's dad was amazing during
Andrew
all this.
And we love Dad.
He really took a good charge of how things were being done. Because I was in a C-section, I was a mess. Mark's having these issues was not expected. Full term, no issues, no nothing, and so he was saying he's got to deal with the choices we make as well. So that really set the tone. We had a great obstetrician and a great pediatrician. They were married, the two of them, and got along very well at that time.
We love her.
Yeah, we love our good docs. But we were told by them to just raise Mark, just love him, and we'll all get through it. And that's not always everybody's experience, so that really helped us. But he was in the neonatal intensive care unit for 4 weeks. You were the love of all of them. Here you are. Mark was 9 pounds when he was born, so he's in the NICU.
I've seen the pictures. He's a
he
cute
was.
kid.
You were a
chunky
boy.
baby.
He captivated people way back then, but it was tough, buddy. You had IVs in your head because they ran out of places to put them.
God.
He had. He was couldn't have anything by mouth because of the gut issues for, the first 2 weeks. So he was just fed by IVs, and, we would just hold him. I know this is really yucky to hear, Mark, but we started learning right from the start. Started learning how we were going to have to advocate.
But he had a basic acclimation to procedures, kind of before he could walk, before he could crawl. But so there were things going on medically, and then we get to a point where, in order to do something like a blood draw, or in order to go in for a procedure, they started to have you hold him down.
Absolutely. Right, Mark? Remember the treatment room at the hospital? We won't say it because it's pretty normal. Mm-hmm. They did their best to try to minimize the trauma that occurs when people are restrained for any kind of treatment. But
it's scary. I mean, there's
it's terrifying. It's not just scary; it's terrifying.
I have to go in for a flu shot on Saturday, and I don't want to go.
Would you like us to work with you, Mark? We need to work with Matt here on this, okay?
But that's you go in, and I think we're all probably getting more shots than we ever had before with the COVID vaccine and the flu and all these things. But it's even if it's traumatic regardless, let alone when you're dealing with all of these disabilities and conditions, and then people are holding you down, and you don't have.
And let's face it, Mark, you have what's called an intellectual disability, right? Your brain just works differently. Mm-hmm. It just works differently, a little slower. And when it takes you longer to process stuff
right
in your brain, the trauma's even worse. The fear is even worse because you don't get a chance to change it. Mark had his first open heart surgery at 6 months.
6 months.
6 months.
6 months. Yep. We had to
6
give you to the docs, and you came out with
you did love your docs. To
things
be fair.
in every
Always
orifice, plus lots more tubes and all that stuff.
Wow.
And then he had his second at 6 years old. And that was the one that really caused you, Mark, to be like just scared of everything.
Right, and that's it creates a you don't want to go in for things that you need.
Well,
and it becomes the doctor is a villain and not someone that's trying to help you, right? And I think our medical system is always in a hurry. And it's
true.
they want to get done and they want to move on to the next person, and and it's a you're in a line. And so I think there's an impatience that even if there's not something else going on, that they're ready to get you done, and you talk to a nurse more than you talk to a doctor. Like they line you up so that the doctor only has to do the one part.
Well, sure.
And so when you add in restraint and you add in communication challenges, and you're not able to advocate for yourself, that has to be such a
tough.
headache.
It was tough. What really, the first thing that got Rachel, you still weren't here yet.
No,
for this one,
I
for the
would've-
6-year-old.
I was very, very close to it, but not quite yet.
I think I was pregnant for you.
Yep.
I was pregnant for Rachel when you had your second heart surgery, Mark.
How old was he then?
6.
6. Okay.
6.
So
yeah.
so just 2 open heart surgeries
in 6 years.
in 6 years.
Yeah, yeah. And honestly, though,
I think I broke a toe once. I mean, like just the idea of yeah.
But it's our norm. That's
Yeah.
our norm, right? That's our norm. Because, there were people who've been in that hospital for months and months. And here we were like we were going home in a few days,
Right.
But just all the different things that happened. And then Mark, when you were 11 years old, so he got his heart surgery done at 6. They repaired the valve again, which was great. At 5 days after heart surgery, Mark was out playing on the rope swing. And the doctors had said, he'll self-regulate. And I got on the phone as I'm looking out the window going, is this what you meant? So Mark went, no, they said, get him off the rope.
Of course.
That was you, Mark. You were always going to challenge the status quo yourself, right?
Well, yeah, for sure. And one of my favorite stories is always talking about coming in from the rain.
Oh, yeah, I didn't tell that
They've
story.
always shared
Storm?
some. Yeah. You love to watch storms, but one of my favorite stories that I've heard is we had a lot of really wonderful doctors, but we also had people who were constantly telling us, Mark, what you weren't going to be able to do.
Right.
And so one of my favorites was, well, he'll grow up pretty normal, but he just won't always know when to come in from the rain. And that was one of the things that
2 days old.
Yeah, he was 2 days old, and that's what a doctor said to you. And the first time, Mark, you experienced being out in the rain, you were inside. You ran in. There was no doubt. You were like, absolutely not.
Is that a thing? Like not knowing when to come? Like, because that's
it was the expectation that he's
Expectation,
not
there you
going
go.
to understand. It
like I
wasn't,
stay out in the rain. I don't think that's I don't know.
But it was.
Is this a diagnostic podcast now? I don't know.
Establishing that there were going to be things that Mark just wouldn't understand, and that he couldn't understand, and that's the key. That was the mindset that we should have for you, instead of let's find what he can do and what he is able to figure out, or how can we rework this so it's something that works for Mark.
Yeah.
It was just automatically, this is getting the mindset of what he can't do. And that was pretty consistent over the years.
I think that's a really good point to bring up now because, buddy, that's really what happens to people with disabilities. They get funneled and channeled and labeled, and that's where they stop. That's where the system stops them. So
here's what you can do. Here's what you can't do.
Well, it's like Rachel said. It's really here's what you can't do.
And statistically, this is true, so it must be true for you.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
And
absolutely.
it's inconvenient for us to try to figure out a way for you to be able to do it. It's not easy for us to do, so we're not going to go out of our way to make it easier for you.
And it's systemic. That's the key here. It's systemic. Individual doctors or nurses or therapists or whatever aren't trying to be mean or trying to, do things to hurt those with disabilities or their caregivers or whatever.
Absolutely.
It's just what they've been taught and what they've come to expect. So as we go forward in this podcast, hopefully we'll be able to show you how that affects everyone, how that affected you, Mark. Is there anything you got to say right now? Anything you want to put into this, buddy, yet? What do you want to say?
You want to talk about the storms? You love watching them, right? Remember we used to go storm chasing with Dad? I wasn't.
Does Delaware get good
Most of
storms?
Oh yeah.
We used
Because
to
we get like
really
some
good
monsoons here in
ones.
Texas.
Yeah.
Okay, but
occasionally.
we were waiting
Yeah.
for my buddy over here to say something. You go for it, buddy.
Yeah, I need you.
You love Andrew? Shh. Okay. Shh.
Anybody else?
Yeah, I need you. Be safe.
Be safe.
Yeah, I need you, Dewey. He all die.
Can I explain who Dewey is? And Andrew? So our dad is Bill. So and Mark, you refer to him as Bill. So
Yes,
if you
it
ever hear
does.
Bill, that's our dad. Andrew is his husband, and Dewey is his dog.
Got it.
So Mark loves his animals, right? You got all kinds of animals, and you love your people.
People, yeah, coming. Well, Modome. Hey, are you guys? Yeah, ready?
You
I-
ready?
Yeah,
Guys.
the Alamo Dome.
What was it? The Alamo Dome? I don't
Dome.
remember.
It's not what was, it's what's going
Oh,
to be
what's going to be
someday.
at the Alamo Dome.
Yes, Mark wants to be seen at the Alamo Dome, right?
Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah.
people see you.
They're going to see you.
He wants it to. We are going to be taking this on the road, and Mark's got plans, right, dude?
Mm-hmm.
Mark has plans. We are going to do a show, podcast, presentation, something from the Alamo Dome. Folks, put it on your calendar.
Okay.
We will let you know when that
Yeah,
happens.
you guys.
Mark has
People-
determined that's what he wants to do.
I've heard the
Yeah,
Alamo
right.
Dome many times when we were filming for the course. Yeah.
That's what his plan is. That's where we're going to go. Mark has plans for himself too, right, dude? I know we're getting off topic.
No,
Sorry.
so at what age was Mark? Was the restraint becoming?
Prevalent.
Well, and I think the most damaging, the most traumatic. Because I think when they're really small, it's kind of,
Well,
there's
yeah,
a certain
it's-
point, but
let me just tell you the watershed moment, right?
Mm-hmm.
Marky, you were 11, and I'm not a small person. I'm the one that's always had to hold him down because I'm the one that would take him. Mark is showing you how we practiced for something. You're getting ahead of the podcast here, dude. But we'll tell that
Spoilers.
story. We'll tell that story. That was
Spoilers.
a non-restraint moment that we can tell you about later. That
Okay.
was after another heart surgery. But Mark had to have allergy tests done when he was 11,
Mm-hmm.
and it was a nightmare.
We're going to get to that.
The way they did it back then, and I don't know if they still do it this way now or not, but was 27 little needle picks down his back.
yeah, I think that's still
Okay?
how they do it.
Okay,
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
I don't know, but
Yeah.
that's how they did it.
What like medieval test? We're gonna just expose you to a bunch of stuff and see what's
you'll-
bad. Like
yeah, well, that's exactly what it was. But people do. I'm going to say,
Yeah.
excuse me, I'm going to defend our medical world. They do what they know, and until you know
Sure.
different, you can't do different, right? So that's what they had to do, or that's what
Yeah.
they thought they had to do. So we're in the room in our another regional children's hospital, and after half an hour of screaming and crying, and Marky, I don't know that you even remember this or if you have blocked it out, but I laid on him, I screamed at him, I cajoled him, I offered him rewards, everything. We had 3 of them done. 3 out of 27 in 30 minutes. And Mark was screaming and crying so hard. And you see, Mark, you are very fair. He's very Caucasian and very fair. And blood vessels were bursting in his face, all around his eyes and his nose because of the pressure,
strain
the
and the-
strain
yeah.
and all that. And I looked at him, and I looked at this poor tech who's like looking to me for help. And because he was getting too big for me to hold by myself.
when you have to have a certain amount of your back exposed, and so it's hard to get a grip on somebody. Yeah, without
you're bringing needles towards somebody
right
too. Like
and
that's
behind them, right? So
Yeah,
they
it
can't
was an-
see what's happening. Yeah.
Absolutely, it was a nightmare. And I
Absolutely.
stopped the whole thing. And I said to her, we can't do this anymore. And I looked at you, Mark, and I realized, even though Mark didn't speak a lot back then, he was finally speaking loud enough that I could hear him when he's going, no, no, no. And I stopped it. And I looked at him and I said, we will never do this to you again. Okay, that's the watershed moment. We will never do this to you again. So the doc came in, the tech went and got the doc, and he brought a prescription in, and he said, Mrs. Jastrebski, he said, we can get these results by blood test. And he said, good luck. He didn't say it flippantly. He was very empathetic, but he didn't have anything else to offer me.
And they didn't suggest like a sedation at that point?
Well,
that was the alternative to the restraint, yeah?
I don't even remember that, Matt. It was just good luck, because he knew what we were going to go through, and he figured we would just do it one time.
Mm-hmm.
And in the car on the way home, Mark and I are looking at each other, and he's got the blood vessels, and he's full of tears, and I'm full of tears.
Well, and you feel like the worst mother that ever lived. And
true, very true, very true. Just
we're all very
awful.
hard on ourselves in those moments.
But what I said to him at that point was, I meant it when I said we'll never do this again, even life-saving. Okay, that's the key there. That was the kicker for me. I can't do this even to save his life. So what am I going to do?
Well, and I think that quality of life matters, and quality of treatment, and you don't want him to be afraid of you, and to trust is so important. And so it's a
Well, when you're somebody's caregiver, you're supposed to be able to be the most trusted person in their life. But when you have to ride that line between, this is medical care. This is important for you, Mark. Like, this is stuff that we need to be able to gather information. We need to be able to treat you and make sure that you're safe and healthy. But at the same time, you're safe and healthy, but we're causing harm.
Right.
Even if we don't want to be, we still are.
Yeah, we have the phrase medically necessary, where it's, we have to do that. But then that leans into necessity is the mother of innovation and invention. And in this case, it really was a mother of innovation and creation.
Yeah.
So you said, I don't have to, I'm not going to do this.
I'm not going to do this. And let me tell you, are you okay, Mark? First of all, hearing all this stuff, you still doing okay? Awesome, because now we're going to get into the fun part. And this is where Rachel comes in.
And you can talk about all the good stuff, right, that you've done since then?
Yes, I am the mother of invention, right, Matt?
Yeah, no, and that's... when we did the introductory video, there was I had to kind of drag you to talk about yourself. But it's such an important, pivotal moment that I think already has changed the lives of thousands of people. And I don't know many people that can say that. We were talking to Meals on Wheels this morning.
Okay.
And they take a meal to an individual, and they feed 9,000 people a day. It's
That's
great.
amazing.
But
yeah.
each driver is interacting with 50, right? And so here's you creating this method and this philosophy, this way of looking at things that has impacted thousands. And that's why I say you're nuts, because but there's a stubbornness to that, where you said, I actually can change the world. And that's, it's that old Apple line of the people crazy enough to think that they can change the world are the ones who do.
Yep.
Right.
Well, yeah, but you have to remember something. I'm crazy, but I'm not perfect. So there's a lot of.
But nobody is.
Well,
Yeah.
true. That's true, right?
But I mean, you had an idea, and you had the know-how and the dedication to be able to take it to the point that we are at now. And so I think that's, did we make a lot of mistakes along the way? Sure. Were there a lot of things that we could have done better? Yeah. But that doesn't
That's
mean...
how you adjust and you learn. And
Absolutely. You're
That's
right.
how we make it better.
You got to run the
That's how we make
gauntlet
it better.
yeah.
Well, and Rachel knows of what she speaks because. Go ahead, Mark, because this is the one place I'm. If you don't stop calling
Usually,
me Debbie,
she is not allowed to be called by her first name.
I will meet you
I
outside.
don't even know who's snorting into
I'll
their
tell her.
microphone. I don't know if it's you or it's him. I really
Probably me. I'm a known snorter. Excuse me.
Yeah.
So a long. I don't. Oh, come on, guys.
Debbie.
Mark, Kevin.
So
I think we're devolving
Oh,
here.
that's getting your government name out there, Mark.
Right.
So day one.
Day one.
Mm-hmm.
Here's what I did.
It doesn't have a name. It's
No.
a frustration. It's a rage. you
it's
hated
a
what you were putting.
desperation.
Yeah, yeah.
It was desperation. Okay, let me just tell you
Rock bottom.
Rock bottom. A little bit about my background. I was in the medical field for a while, not as a doctor, just did some PA type work. But I also was in the computer business for a long time, as we called it way back when. I was a systems analyst and a COBOL programmer. So you all know how old I am, right? Okay,
so old I've never even heard of that.
Oh God.
Debbie.
There might be.
Laurel's giving me a look. I can see her out of the corner of my eye that she's like, I know what that is.
So anyway, I had a sort of a varied background, but I also grew up down the street when I was very young from a summer camp from people, as we called it back then, for retarded people. Okay. And was Camp Happy Hollow, and the man who ran that place, Jack Fowler, amazing guy, but folks with disabilities became my friends, not just people I worked with or saw or whatever. So I realized, nothing but God, I call it my nothing but God moment, that if he's having these issues, I had to fix this, and then we were going to have to see what happened after that. So I used my background in all these things and kind of looked for what else was out there. Well, sedation's out there, like you'd asked about sedation. Sedation's out there. But to get sedated, Mark would have to have 4 people hold him down because I couldn't do it anymore.
It's still an injection. It's still right.
Still an injection. So
yeah.
Along comes Rachel.
Oh, Rachel.
I said, what is this? So I pulled myself back from the whole thing. And I looked at the problem, as an analyst does, let me see what's going on here. And I realized, Mark, that you were afraid of anything in your personal space. That included injections. Doing your fingernails was a nightmare, right, buddy? And now he does it on his own, just so you know. But it was haircuts.
Right.
I mean, haircuts shouldn't hurt.
And we've spoke to parents that have said that the haircut, our good friend, they just don't cut her hair.
Yep.
Or people cut it in their sleep. And just imagine, if you would, what your family life is like. Oh God, so-and-so's asleep. I have to, I worked with a family several years ago who have, God love them, they still have a young man with autism that they were taught by his school, just a typical school over in New Jersey, to put leather shackles on his hands and feet on a weekly basis to shave him, and do the same thing every 6 weeks to get his hair cut. That was how that young man went through his teenage years, and that's because they didn't know any different till we came along. So, it's pervasive out there. People do what they can, and until we came along and my crazy self said, oh no, we're not doing this anymore. It's pervasive. And I'm sure there's going to be people out there listening and watching this podcast who are going to say the same thing. Oh my God, yes, that's me. Mm-hmm. So.
And we've seen that talking to the families that have come and been part of the course.
I would say the majority of people that I talk to, I go to conferences for this all the time, and so many people come up to me and they're like, oh, this is a thing that I don't have to do. They don't even realize that it's an option not to do it, because that's what they're taught. That's what they're told. Mm-hmm. And if you have somebody who is a professional, or somebody, when you have a child with disabilities, so much of what you're doing is looking for guidance, because there's a lot that you might not know or don't know. And so if you have somebody who is educated and they seem to know better, then you're gonna go in that direction that they tell you to go, and that's what they're taught in medical school, dental school,
right?
And it's a very, very common accepted practice all across the board.
But I think there's an affirmation too, where it's the step one is, of course, wow, I'm not alone. Other families are having these experiences, and then having the community aspect where you're able to listen. And I've learned so much in the last year about the different disabilities, and something that I found very interesting in some of the kids we've worked with recently in filming and taking some of the photo shoots and whatnot, is just there's such a what the experience of one family is could be completely different, even with the exact same diagnosis.
Sure.
Because the
Right,
you know
bud?
the dice rolled differently, right? And,
Yeah.
you know, one of the children reacts more distractedly and aloof, and one more aggressively and kind of angry and
It's how people communicate.
and so it's going to be I think there's a certain level of you know, we're going to give you tools that you can use when needed, and here's when that would be, you know, and that's I while we have the moment, I'm a big fan of kind of giving the roses while people are around to enjoy them, but I love how in all of the course materials you talk about your needs are going to be different. And so don't compare yourself to this success story or that or whatever. And
absolutely.
understand that your individual, you know, and that's kind of the framework, is that it's you could be on either end of the spectrum. Pun not originally intended, but you could be on, you know, and then kind of have a need, you know, and so go into it kind of with fresh eyes, because your mileage is going to vary based on the person that you're caring for.
True. I think we're getting ahead of ourselves, though, because we're talking about the program, but we haven't told them what the program is yet.
So
let
day
me
one.
finish.
Day one.
Day one.
How did it? When did you knew you had a thing?
So I'll give you the very brief synopsis, but first, Mark, you doing all right over there, buddy?
What?
Are you bored with what we're doing? You hear
like,
this?
Mom.
He hears this so often.
Debbie.
You're going to get in so much trouble
You
later.
are. But
Hello.
all right, let me just finish for a few minutes, Mark, and then you can have the floor, right? Is that okay?
Of
right?
course.
Okay. So I said, what I said was I used my background to find out, and the only thing out there that could help was sedation at that point. Sedation or restraint or, you know, that was all I found. Maybe there was other stuff, but I didn't find it. So I stepped back and I said, what is it about this? And I realized he was afraid, Mark, you were afraid of anything in his personal space. Anything. Well, how do we get in there and kind of meet him where he is? And you are 100% right, Matt, when you said, I'm not what did I say? What did you say? This is my old brain that just went out of whack here.
We were talking about different people are going to come at this differently, and they're going to have a different experience. And they're
Right. But I didn't know what I was doing yet.
Sure.
I didn't know I was creating something. At that moment, it was only for Mark.
You were looking for solutions
right,
for your
you,
son.
bud.
Yeah,
Yep.
yeah.
Solutions for you. So I thought, how do I meet you? Where are you with this? And I realized that I had to take it slower, and I had to make sure Mark knew we weren't going to restrain him. And I just had, and I also had to have, Rachel, you talked about expectations earlier. I had to have the expectation that together we could do this, number one.
Absolutely.
And that I could find a way to work with him with this. Because what he had to do was get a blood draw, right? Because the doctor said, here's your thing to get a blood draw. So we sat down and I said, Rachel, come here, Rachel, 5 years old.
Come
this
here,
is my
Rachel.
little 5-year-old model, right?
Well, and Mark, you liked me a lot better than her.
Oh my God, he did not.
All right,
Sarah,
well,
we're going to
I
talk to
was
her
his
later, and you better ask that
baby.
question.
I was his baby. Sarah was his younger sister.
Okay, if that
But
matters.
babies.
Yes, Sarah annoyed him. He
No,
changed
it's
my diapers
okay.
and fed me.
Yes.
I've seen the picture. Yeah.
Debbie.
Yes, Mark. So actually, she doesn't know it, but she was the only one available. So
All right, well, details.
because so what I did is I figured we had to get a blood draw. So let me kind of break it down, like, you know, into small steps, but make sure to approach it differently. We're not going to hold you down. We're going to do this sort of at his pace, but I was the leader. And again, I'm saying all these things now. I didn't really know him then, but we got to, Mark could hold his arm out. We used a lot of goldfish crackers, right? He could hold his arm out. That wasn't scary.
Yeah, and I've seen like with Luna and others where it's kind of arm out, and that's and they're ready and they've practiced enough times.
Right. But
Yeah.
so I used an old sock for a tourniquet, but I would work with Rachel first. Come on, Boo Boo. Come on, Rach. Let's do it. Rachel Boo Boo.
Come on,
That's her
Boo Boo.
nickname. Rachel Boo Boo, and she would do
Boo-boo.
it, and he would do it. So there was no pressure. Oh, no pressure. So
But I think there's a monkey see, monkey do with siblings to begin with.
please
For
don't
sure.
use that term.
Oh, but for better and worse, right?
Yes.
Of kind of right. And so because we were doing a practice session the other day, and it was mother and brother and youngest, and seeing the
It's how you learn.
right.
It's how you learn, and
That
Mark,
kind of pack mentality of like, oh, okay.
yeah. So it's okay. We're all doing this.
That way the oldest teaches the bad behaviors to the youngest. So
As you well know, Matt. Okay.
Matt.
Somehow Rachel turned out okay, even though she's the youngest. But anyway, so we would do that, and then what was another nothing but God moment for me was we were sitting at our table, and Mark's dad came up behind him. He was going to be supportive, and he put his hands on Mark's shoulders, and buddy, I saw your face. You went, I could see it come over him, the fear. His body reacted as if he was going to be held down again. And I said, Bill, step back. And he stepped right back, and I said, Mark, it's not, nobody's going to hold you down. Daddy was just trying to support you. So I made Daddy sit down, and he just was like, so he didn't have to experience that
anywhere.
restraint anywhere. Right.
Absolutely.
So then I was doing this in little short pieces, 5 minutes at a time, right? With what I had at home, but I knew I had to get a little more clinical. So I went to the lab where we were going to go, and I found a wonderful phlebotomist that I talked to, and she understood, and she gave me everything but a needle. She gave me the tourniquet. She gave me I still have that damn tourniquet. She gave me blood tubes, empty blood tubes. She gave me what they call a vacutainer, and I went home and I practice a little more. Come on, Rachel, you could, because Rachel was kind of scared of blood draws too.
Come on, Boo-boo.
Funnily enough, the
Come on,
script
Boo-boo.
eventually flipped, and he would come with me to get my blood drawn, and he'd have to hold my hand. And I was, oh God!
So I had to figure out. I had to simulate a needle for him, because that was really the scary part, because he'd been through that trauma just not too long ago. Remember, of the
Well,
needle
and
picks
the
down his
sensory
back.
of that too. And
Yes,
and did you start
yes.
with a paper clip?
I did. I opened up a paper clip, and that's why I'm kind of MacGyver-ish, kind of like
Sure.
a little MacGyver. So I opened up a paper clip, and when I stuck Mark in our practice, he went, "Oh, tickles." So he wasn't stressed.
And but he added a prop to the
He
to the
did.
discussion.
He did.
And then that became a thing. Yeah.
We were ready. Rachel was ready. We were going to go. Mark, you were ready, and I called our friendly phlebotomist.
And this was 2-3 weeks after
2
we
weeks.
had gotten
2 weeks.
2 weeks
Debbie.
of practice.
2 weeks of yes, Fred.
Matt.
Fred is a nickname.
Daddy.
Okay, so 2 weeks after we started these little short practice sessions, and I said to her, remember, we're ready to come in, but remember this, there will be no restraint. There will be no restraint. And on the way there, I kept saying, Mark, just like we practiced, and there's Rachel, and we walk in, and she sits in a chair, and Mark sits in a chair, and he went through the whole process. She was right there holding his hand, and Mark, you looked
5
at
years
her,
old.
5 years old. Well, there's more Rachel stories to tell you, but not right now.
That's a different
The
podcast.
the phlebotomist, but it's a sibling podcast, and it's really important. The phlebotomist stuck him, and he looked at her and said, "Ooh, tickles." Just like when we practiced. Mark, when you got done, it was 5 minutes. It was the most unremarkably remarkable appointment, or I should flip that, remarkably unremarkable appointment we've ever had.
Remarkable. Yeah.
Yes. Oh, okay. I didn't think of that, but
I may have just named the podcast.
remarkably unremarkable. Ooh, I am kind of liking it, Mark. And you walked out of that office, and instead of tears and blood vessels breaking and both of us being drained, he's got a Band-Aid on his arm, and he's telling the entire world, did it, just like that. And that was
But
the start.
that's and that like
You're amazing, buddy.
I think I came into this a year ago, definitely with prejudice.
Sure.
and I don't mean like bigotry, but like just where I'm prejudging, like where you just have certain expectations
do,
of somebody.
Yeah.
And Mark surprises me all the time.
Hey, how that?
I heard that. Did you?
Probably the worst was playing Mario Kart at Dave and Buster's.
Oh yeah.
But
Hell yeah.
yeah. But
Not supposed to say.
Marc's an expert at Dave and Buster's.
oh yeah.
Emmy, here you.
Yeah, you love Emily?
Here is juice.
Did you guys go
And
to Dave
Jesus.
and Buster's? We still have those cards.
Oh,
Gonna
well
say,
then
one of,
it's
one
time
of our
to go.
favorite places.
So
Not-
anyway,
not
finish what
sponsored.
you were
I was gonna
saying,
say
Matt.
not
Well, but
sponsored,
and so everybody expected him to fail. In
And that's-
at the
that's
and you're
routine, yeah.
right and so but sometimes our expectations become our reality just based on that prejudice, where we go in expecting a certain thing and we kind of unintentionally will it to happen, and so you went against the grain in a huge way, and I see it still 23 years later that where doctors don't want to hear that there's pushback, and one of the things too that I found was very interesting was if you have this specialist and this doctor that we go to and they're doing the PWP way, but then this other place still insists on restraint. This restraint process will set back, so it has to be an across the board, and
Should be, yeah.
otherwise you can kind of reintroduce the trauma in
absolutely.
and so it's a very holistic, big picture look at someone's entire care, so that restraint is not a part of any side of their life, which means parents who maybe have had to restrain at home for nail trimming or for hair, or for all of these things, have to look at, so that there's never a, hey, I need you to focus, hey, we're gonna have to do this, and it's gonna be horrible because there's gonna be restraint, like you where the child dreads it, the family, and that anxiety is chemical. Like there's some part of our
all
brain
this
that
is
can
chemical.
smell
Right,
fear,
right.
right?
Oh, absolutely.
And so if I'm nervous, you're gonna pick up, like at a primal level, it's contagious. And so if you don't have the anxiety, then that starts to put the other person, and then if they don't have the anxiety, and
Well,
so
here's
it's,
what I'm going to say to that, though, Matt. I don't want anybody to think that these guys go through this without anxiety and fear. They do. They still have it.
I
Every
still
day.
get afraid of getting my blood drawn. Even now that I'm 28 years old, I have that fear, but I have the capability and the capacity and the confidence to be able to work through it despite the fear.
But even if you're good at having a blood draw, I think we've all had the nurse that couldn't find the vein,
Yep.
right?
Oh,
and so you're going, I
absolutely.
gotta get a blood test, and I'm a fainter, like so the joke is wheelchair and a juice box. And like my vein hurts
dear.
telling the story,
Oh,
right?
Matt,
But
yeah.
and if I would have to get a blood
Matt,
test or so, but
Debbie.
they would have to lay me down, and
Yeah.
how long is it going to take them to find a vein, right?
Well,
and so your anxiety
But
is
think about
there.
this. Anxiety's there anyway.
right?
Exactly. But I want to make sure a couple things based on what you just said. And Mark, did you want to say something to Matt? Because we have to teach Matt to start listening when you speak.
I got to turn so I can see
There
better
you
out
go.
of the corner of my eye.
What did you want to tell Matt about all this? You don't know. You just wanted to be heard, and that's part of it. That is part of it. You just wanted to be heard. What we're talking about here. So let me just close the loop, and then I can say a little bit more about what you said. What I created, that little space and time, was what we now call the practice without pressure philosophy and process, and our nickname for it is PWP.
PWP.
Okay, so you're hearing Matt talk about PWP. That's what it was. And I realized once Mark went through his blood draw, then we had dental work to do because you needed it, right? And then he had to have orthodontia at an early age because, Mark, your teeth were pretty crooked. And in one day, within 6 months, not even 6 months, I think it was about 3 months after that first blood draw, Mark had a blood draw, a dental cleaning and an exam, and an orthodontia, not just consult, but where they put the gooey stuff in the trays. He did all those three things in one day. No restraint. He participated in all of it. And I went, I just was kind of, and the dentist was like, I don't believe this. This is really something. And I realized that if he was having this issue, a lot of other people were. And that's how Practice Without Pressure was born. The Practice Without Pressure philosophy and process.
Now, how do you go from trying to find solutions for your own child, for your family, to I can make something that can help more than just my son?
Well, the disability community is very much a community because, it can be very lonely being a caregiver for somebody who has a disability, being someone with a disability. And so community is very important in my experience for a lot of people just involved, or if they know somebody with a disability and care for them. And so at first it was mostly just talking about word of mouth. She started reaching out to other families that she knew. Hey, is this something that you've experienced? And I think at first it was hard to have those conversations because it's we say it's a dirty little secret that people don't like to talk about, because who wants to say I had to lay on top of my kid to get an injection? But it's done all the time. And that's what we found out through, our trusted people, and then, it became a bigger and bigger circle. And they found out about what Marc had done and saw, the amazing things that you were able to accomplish.
I heard that.
You heard that. I know you were amazing. And seeing what we had gone through before versus in such a short amount of time to be able to transition to this empowered, incredibly amazing human being who is now seen as a human being that had capability and had confidence to be able to do these things. It was very impactful for the people that we knew around us. And I think that's what really garnered a lot of interest in how can we do this?
So Marc had fans.
Oh, Marc has always had fans.
Oh, yeah.
I've always
Let's
joked,
go Flyers.
Let's go
Marc is
Flyers.
also
That's
a
our
fan.
hockey team.
Let's
Marc-
go Flyers.
Woo woo! I will never forget when we were driving through. We're driving through like a McDonald's or something like that, and Marc was in the passenger
Hey,
seat.
Teresa.
Teresa works.
Hey, Mary.
Yes, you love your McDonald's. But Marc was in the passenger seat. I'm in the driver's seat, and we're paying, and somebody's leaning through the window. Marc, hi, how are you? And I feel like everywhere we go, it was somebody he knew from high school.
Okay.
Everywhere we go, Marc finds somebody that he knows, or he establishes a connection with somebody. You love people.
But were you hearing that from other parents that were like, okay,
No parents, no party.
he had this
No,
progress?
Marc is trying to tell us something here, guys.
What, buddy?
What is it that
Hey,
you
guys.
You love who?
Hey, people.
You love all the people?
Love Modome.
You're ready to
Alamo Dome,
talk
baby.
to the people?
Hey, people.
Sweet.
Sweet.
Buddy, can I give the listeners a little explanation about this and how you communicate? Can I tell them all that? Is that okay? Thank you. Marc becomes part of the conversation in whatever way he can. So if we're talking, for instance, about McDonald's, his friend Teresa, that Marc has befriended,
Mary.
Teresa
And
and
Mary.
Mary are ladies that work at McDonald's.
Hey, Mary.
they've
Very
become
people focused.
Very people focused. Marc will contribute to the conversation in a way that's meaningful to him, to you. So what might seem like babble or nothing related to other people, that's your way of being part of something. And we show it in text groups. Marc's in text groups, and he'll heart everything. That's his way of being included.
Sure.
So that's what Marc's doing. He's including himself in the way that is comfortable for him, communicating in that way. So I want you all to know that's where all this comes from, right, bud?
Hey, Tia.
You love Tina. Who else do you love?
Mac.
You love the Mac. Okay. Who else? Or what else? Sandy, we love Sandy.
Come
Sandy's out
here.
there somewhere.
Sandy's out there somewhere.
We'll see Sandy in a little bit, buddy.
Everyone's patiently waiting while we're doing the podcast.
In bated breath, sorry.
Okay.
Yeah.
Anything
So-
else, bud?
Alan, you
too.
love Alan. Can we wait? Can we get moving on though? Okay.
Chit
Thank
chat?
you.
Cool.
So were you speaking to other parents and who were seeing and it?
I was,
It
yeah,
became
I
a
was.
kind of clear that this was a solution that was that
Yeah.
they wanted for their own. And so was it?
At our
which
kitchen
came
table.
first?
Chicken or the egg? At our kitchen table, we kind of did it simultaneously. I wouldn't recommend to a lot of people to do what we did because we did it on a shoestring, believe it or not.
Yeah.
I mean, we literally did it at my kitchen table in Bear, Delaware. And that was tough, but it was necessary. We were members of the Down Syndrome Association, and like Rachel said, it's a community, and I just had to put myself out there. Delaware's a very small state, so you kind of like San Antonio area. You kind of know people, or people who know people, and so I would just start talking. And I was asked to speak to the Developmental Disabilities Council about what I was trying to do, and I'll never forget that. The first time I did that, my eyes got teary and my voice wouldn't work, and but somehow you get through it, because if Marc can get through what he got through, I can certainly get through what I got through. Marc faced down his hugest fears, and the expectations. We changed his tiny little world.
Right.
And so we're helping to change other people's little worlds. And then as you change those little worlds, then other people start becoming aware of what you're doing, right? Would you say that's a way?
What did that look like on day one when you started to? Because so PWP is now a online e-learning course, and and you can still work with practice specialists if there's one near you. But that was your first process, was to kind of like a consultant.
Well,
and be the
yeah, I
practice
guess you could
specialist.
say that.
Yeah.
We call the people that do this practice specialists. I did it again out of our kitchen. Rachel was a little model for other people,
And I've seen it done in a living room, in a kitchen,
We've gotten real creative with
Yes.
this in the past, right?
But we again, just it was I call it grassroots, I guess you could say, and the fact that you said I'm crazy, and you're 100% right with that. I wasn't.
I mean, I'm
give
glad
up.
you are. It talked
I don't
about,
know that my kids are quite as
I mean,
glad.
it ended up working out. We just got a little bit of it in our DNA. It's embedded in there.
Yeah.
It
But
is.
it
My
works.
my father was a bit of a maverick, shall we say?
Sure.
Yeah, and so I think that, like Rachel said, it's kind of in the DNA, So it just was little bit by little bit by little bit, and families were having success with with what we're doing, and it was so different because it's a person approach. It's not a behavior approach. It's not a procedure approach. It's not a disability approach, because I don't care who we work with,
Sure.
Not an age related approach. And again, like I said, Delaware's so small, so I remember, somehow the medical director of the Division of Developmental Disabilities at the time, Dr. Tom Kelly. Do you remember Tom? Mm-hmm. He heard about us, and we kind of got a very small state contract to just see if it would work at one of their institutions, and it did. And, it's been a lot of trial and error, Matt.
Yeah.
It's been, let's see if this works, and let's see if that works. And, being the crazy person I am, I'm not always the most political, so I sometimes would stick my foot in my mouth a lot.
Sure.
But other people were there to help me pull it out and to help us move it forward. So at one point, I knew we couldn't keep going in my kitchen because I don't have like a dental chair that goes back. So, it gets tough to keep doing these. But
you were trying to create that immersion.
Yes,
and really
yes.
be able to role play in a setting as close to the actual experience.
Mm-hmm. Yes, we went from least clinical to most clinical. And, as I look back on the 20 plus years, we've gone that way. The first dental chair or simulated dental office was John Leach School up in Newcastle, Delaware. the principal knew what we were doing because Marc was in the program there. And he said, I said, Jack, do you have a room somewhere in your school? I had a donated dental chair, seriously, that worked. And Jack said, yeah, I have one of those. We can do that. Let's execute a contract. I had to get liability insurance.
Mm-hmm.
So we worked out of Leach School for a while. And then I realized we needed to have a place where we could have people who were ready to try their procedures, but maybe weren't ready to just go out in the community. So we created a practice and procedure center in Newark, Delaware, where we had Dr. Hope Glavin, who's a great person. She was doing the dentistry, and we had a Chad Anzalotti doing some dentistry. We had some, just wonderful people, some phlebotomists and dental hygienists and practice specialists. I mean, it was a great concept. It was a proof of concept. And again, you make mistakes, you stop, you start, and then we had to have some surgery. Marc had to have yet another surgery, and I had to have some major back surgery. And, we had things as a family we had to do. And so we separated the operational side from the training and education, which is what you were referencing with our e-classes, and then COVID. So we had to learn a new way of doing things. So I said, okay, how can we do this? During COVID, let's see if we can do something virtual. Let's just see if we can do something virtual. And then the opportunity.
We've had a lot of success in the past doing, presentations.
Yes.
Over, and it's relatively straightforward to be able to transition that to a Zoom meeting,
right,
or something.
Everybody
like
got
that.
really good at streaming.
Everybody
really fast.
got really good.
And so
is your audio on? Can you hear me? Is everybody there? Is it? Am I sharing my screen? Is this? Yeah.
A whole hot mess, but we ended up it worked out. But it was a huge transition around 2019, 2020, but it was for the best, because what we were doing was amazing, but how could we reach more people? Because this was, like we said, a systemic problem that, we had somebody that at one point traveled from Michigan to Delaware to work with us. And we did an almost intensive version of Practice Without Pressure for a week or two.
One week.
And it ended up working out great, and she had a lot of successes with her dental work.
And blood draws. And blood draws. Don't forget that. Our little Emily, we love her.
She's amazing.
Oh.
But
Emily.
she,
you.
I know.
You
we
worked
missed
with
her.
Emily
She
too,
was
didn't you,
amazing.
Marc?
But we were able to.
Jesus.
Okay. Did you want to add anything else, buddy, or can I finish? Okay, thank you. It was definitely something that we had to find a way to make it more sustainable as well as accessible, because there were so many people that were, can you come to me? Can we, and there's only one. You.
There was a practice specialist.
Well, no, there were more, but
it was
one
definitely
visionary.
Something. Yes,
let's put it that way.
Somebody who could teach it to other people as well, and so we had to come up with something that was more sustainable, and that's how Power to Marc, what it's turned into today. How it started with everything was, it was a need and a want to do more and to serve better.
Well, now it's being translated into multiple languages.
Yeah.
I mean,
but I want to let me just explain how we got here.
Success.
Well, it is. We had back in Delaware. I was invited several national places. We had a couple of national grants to work with women's health, because that could be a whole podcast in itself, right, Rach?
For sure. Women's
health. Imagine women being restrained for women's health exams, but we won't go there today. And I want you to know that I had been reached out to and met a woman named Leah Rummel, who worked at the time for United Healthcare. And big shout out to United Healthcare, because Leah said to me when I met her in 2016, I'm going to find a way somehow to get you to Texas because I believe, right, Rach? Right, Mark?
She was very excited about
So
what we were
she's
doing.
who we have to thank for you being here.
One of the people,
Okay.
yes, one of the people. She seriously kept talking to people down here in Texas for years. Leah's an amazing person. She is a mom of an adult now with significant disability as well. Moms and siblings do a lot. Just want you to know. And dads too, sorry, but caregivers. Anyway, so right around Thanksgiving 2021, right, coming out of COVID or whatever, I get this phone call that says somebody from United Healthcare contacted us and wants to talk to you. What's the name? Leah Rummel. God, I think I know that name. And from there, she said there's this place called the Multi-Assistance Center being put up here, and it's being funded by Gordon Hartman's foundation, and there's a man named Alan Castro who's the CEO of it, and we want to talk to them about bringing Practice Without Pressure to San Antonio, Texas. Would you be interested? San Antonio, Texas, is a long way from Delaware. Long way from Delaware.
What?
But that really came to fruition. I had a friend of mine who was, his name is Jerry Alt, and he was available from Chicago to come down here with us. And I said to Rachel, so let me ask you a question. Rachel was in Delaware. My Sarah is a veterinarian in Delaware, so she's got her life is committed. But Rachel's kind of been back and forth. What does she want to do? And I looked at her and I said, look, I need some help if we're going to do this. Would you be interested in moving to San Antonio for 6 months and coming with, helping with Marc? Because we're a team, we're a tandem. And she looked at me and with no hesitation, there was none. She said, I can do that, Mom. Really? So lock, stock, and barrel, the three of us and Jerry pulled into San Antonio.
Jerry.
Another friend was driving, and that's how we got here. And Alan's vision for practice, Alan, you're right, your buddy.
Alan.
So we were supposed to be here for 6 months, and it's turned into pretty much 2.5 years now, almost 3 going on 3. But that's how Practice Without Pressure as a philosophy and process came to this area. And so we're at the MAC, and then Alan became available as a CEO, and I knew I have the visionary and the all the content stuff, and Rachel and Marc are here with me, but I'm not an organization person. I'm not. So Alan and I said, and again, this is my crazy me. Like, why would he have any interest? And I'm going to tell the folks what you're talking about in a minute, Marc.
Can Mom finish her
Let
story?
me finish, and then
we'll talk
you
about
can
them?
add to it, buddy. I said, Alan, is there any way you might be interested in coming to work with us? And he said, he thought for, I don't know how long he thought, but it wasn't very long. And he said, yes, absolutely. And he's brought this amazing organizational wizardry that he has. And his idea was, let's do some rebranding and let's do some thinking. Would you consider a name change? And I went, no. And then he said, just think about it.
No.
And I said, sure.
Well, because we were planning on changing a lot of how we deliver our services. It wasn't just the name change, it was an organizational change. We were planning on really rebranding not what we do, but how it's presented to the world and how we can offer it. So it was for me, a rebirth of we called it Practice Without Pressure initially, but this was going to be much bigger than that. And so that's why we were considering a name change.
It became like one of the products of the larger.
Yes.
And when we talked for the launch video, you said you felt like you were powerless as a mom.
Yeah,
Your son was powerless.
We were. Even
so
Rachel.
You built this to
Yeah.
give power to Marc.
When we were looking at different names, I want to let Mark give me one more minute, and then I want you to weigh in, because there's people that are important to you when you hear the term MAC and Multi-Assistance Center that he has to shout out to. So give me just another minute. But, oftentimes people with disabilities, you have to talk about dignity, and you have to talk about inclusion, and you have to talk this and that. It didn't speak to me. And our wonderful branding company, Rojo 032, there was one company name that they came up with that was Power to Marc, M-A-R-C. And I said, that's it. And the team...
We know that guy.
We know that guy. He's cool.
The team we had around us was like, I don't know. Some of the other names, I was like, no, it's got to be Power to Marc. And then Rachel came up with, we could say Power to...
Marc.
Not just Mark Blank, but Power to Sam, and Power to Ethan, and Power to Becky, Mom, and all that.
And I liked that about the because it's not just about the person receiving the care. It's about their caregiver. It's about it benefits the doctor. And so it kind of gave it a kind of a story narrative blank slate to be Power to You.
Well, exactly.
And whoever is listening to this from the perspective of, I want to give power to my child who doesn't have a voice and who can't participate in normal society, right? And so, how do we enable the disabled, and how do we turn on these tools and create a toolkit that not only helps them get care but helps them participate in other ways? And I've seen kids role play with grandma.
You've seen that,
and we'll go through, showing Meemaw how to do a blood draw or something, and it's I think we talk about Down syndrome and autism and things to where it's always kind of described as the lesser. Something is diminished.
Sure.
Of
course,
it's suppressed. It's
that's how it is.
Delayed.
Right.
But oftentimes there are superpowers behind that, where some of these kids' memory is so supercharged that I've watched 5 or 6 years old.
Luna was not quite 5 when she went
completely repeating back the process to us. Absolutely. Step by step. And where the parent will be going through the practice session, they'll go, no, this way, and they'll tell
absolutely,
the parents
absolutely. I have to stop you guys for a minute.
I wanted to talk about how, Marc, you've brought power to so many people, and you've given so many people so many amazing opportunities. Who are some of the people that you've gotten to bring power to? You want to talk about it?
Incoming guys.
Who?
Hook.
Who are the people at the MAC that you love?
Incoming guys.
You're coming there.
Power to Marc, you.
Power to Marc, you. But remember who you were talking about earlier? Daisy, and who else? Laura. Who else?
People see you.
People will see you, yes.
Mm-hmm. And I think, Marc, that's very powerful when, although, I think you've got such a big head from this now that it's got your name on it.
Don't eat.
But Marc, when you say,
the man, the myth, the mascot.
When you say that you want people to see you, I think that's really amazing, buddy, because I think a lot of people don't see you sometimes, and a lot of people don't see people with disabilities, and you get to be out here and people see you and they love to see you, right? So I love that you always bring that up, and you're getting people to see other individuals with disabilities as people and as capable human beings. I mean, Marc, you get to, we've talked about modeling. Part of what Marc has done since he's been in San Antonio and throughout his life with what we do is act as a model for other individuals with disabilities. Like you, Marc, have shown other individuals how to practice blood draws. You've worked on haircuts with people. What else, buddy? Nail cuts. I mean, you've done so many truly. What is that one? Is that dentistry?
Do you want to show them what you were doing earlier with this?
Yeah,
let's.
Marc, you've come such a long way since the 11-year-old boy that was held down for procedures. You've had that open heart procedure when you were 28 years old. After that, you had some fluid that was in your lungs that had to be drained, which, they put a pinprick in your back, and they had to drain how many liters of fluid?
A full liter.
A full liter of fluid.
Wow.
And what we did was, for all of your procedures, buddy, we've worked together. We've found out from the practitioner what it is that we need to practice. And now, you use it as a demonstration. You had to, for this procedure to get the fluid drained, you had to lean forward onto the table and let them go into your lungs with a needle and draw out fluid. And Marc, you did that without restraint, without
without sedation
no issue.
either.
Yeah, without sedation. I mean,
They thought we were nuts. Remember?
Yeah. But I mean, just look at where you've come, buddy. I think that's really amazing and something I always like to highlight.
What do you want to say? You got more coming out that mouth, I can tell. What?
Any other procedures you want to talk about that you've gotten done? What else? This one? Marc has your pacemaker defibrillator that he got put
Hey,
in.
heart guys.
Your heart's doing great.
But do you want to talk about something fun that you have? What do you have? What do you have up here on your sleeve?
Me and Marc
Phillies.
got our
Phillies
tattoos and Shamu.
Shamu tattoo. That's Shamu
Is that a Power
tattoo.
to Marc tattoo or is that a temporary tattoo?
That's
that one's temporary.
supposed to be temporary, but
But the shampoo is not.
no, the Shamu is not.
the
Marc
Phillies.
went to our lovely tattoo artist in
As
Delaware,
you can see, I
Anna,
pretty
and
covered.
Rachel is the tattoo queen. And
You always
we
wanted
have,
to get one with me, buddy.
We have matching tattoos. And Marc, now this is somebody who used to be held down for a little needle prick. He
And that's a
chose
couple
to
of
get
needle
it done.
pricks.
Yes,
Yeah,
that's
yeah.
more than a couple. So
How long did it take to get the
know. Rachel's the
Shamu
queen,
done?
The
so-
Shamu one was about 30 minutes. And
Really?
then
That's fast.
Yeah, she's really amazing. About 30 minutes.
It
And
looks
the
great.
Phillies one was about
Love it.
15 minutes.
But there's like shading on that. Like it's a really cool tattoo.
Yeah. And so, Marky, you decided that's what you wanted to do. And originally we were going to do, remember, Marc, the Phillies one on your leg.
Yeah,
didn't go so well.
Phillies.
The leg is a little bit more painful
Sure.
than the arm. And so, Anna, we worked with her through the practice without pressure method. And, buddy, we ended up getting it done right here. And
Hey,
you
Scooby.
I have a tattoo of my dog Scooby. So,
Pilgrim.
Pilgrim, show
And
them where Pilgrim
all
is.
All of my animals are tattooed.
Chi-Chi.
on me. Yep.
Chi-Chi. Who's Chi-Chi?
My cat.
Gigi Pat.
Chi-Chi fat.
She's not fat.
I'm
But
a
yeah,
fat.
so Marky,
Pilgrim was fat.
Thank you.
Marky, I think you've done a lot of really amazing things, and you've empowered a lot of people, and your
People,
stories,
hey, you.
love them. And
Go sweet. Hey, buddy.
they're
What
cool.
is it about go to sleep, buddy?
You
You're
have
telling
to get
people
a good
to go to
night's
sleep.
sleep before coming to see him at the Alamo
I'm so
Dome.
sorry. I
As
didn't
someone who
get that.
did not get a full night's sleep, I support this plan completely. No, but when we're doing the introduction for the courses, you can tell how proud he is and I feel like, Sandy writes these amazing titles for all of these pieces, and
she
Sandy,
writes the
back
pieces.
here.
but then
Ian.
We'll
it's
see
Back
you
here.
after, buddy.
we're able to kind of introduce and when we're reading them, it's like that's important, isn't it, Marc? And he knows.
Absolutely.
And because he's been through every single one of these pieces, and so I love to introduce those together because it's kind of he's going, yeah, this is important, and so it's like he's vouching for as living proof how each of those things worked.
You're
know,
right.
and-
You're
and-
100% right.
Yeah.
Well, and let me talk for just a minute about the team because you hear Marc
Absolutely.
talking about different people. Alan came on first, and then we have several folks who've come on just as we need them. I keep talking about nothing but God moments, but Rachel stayed, and Marc stayed with me here. We've brought in some people. I have to have someone to.
We sneakers.
Your what? Your Red Wing sneakers too. He wants them
Sneakers coming.
sneakers. They're coming. So we have developed an amazing team here in San Antonio, but also still a couple people in Delaware. Sandy is amazing. She's going to be taking over a lot of what I do. She's immersed herself in practice without
Oh, yeah.
pressure, and she is she's the reason that I feel comfortable now being able to let go and do some
She's
of that.
pretty much written a textbook.
Absolutely.
At this point.
Here's how amazing she is. She can look in my brain and make it so other people can understand it, which is just amazing. You know, we've worked with Dr. Heather Davis, but Sandy's the one who's kind of taking all this, and we have folks here. You know, our team is amazing. We have a mom who has had 2 children go through the PWP process, Becky,
who had her own child and became so passionate about it that she adopted another child with
yes,
Down
she
syndrome,
did.
and that is, talk about a huge heart.
Oh, and so Becky's part of the team now, so she gets it, and we've got Barb, who's also been a
Barb.
mom of someone with a significant disability, and Vicky and Cherie, who's up in Delaware, and
come here.
who am I missing?
We'll go see-
Anybody, Rachel?
Oh my gosh, we have so many people part of the team. I don't think so.
I think
So. I mean, but we've had so many people that have just contributed so much and just believing in us, and even just the people that are going around championing us. We're very grateful for what opportunities we've had since moving to San Antonio, and to be able to produce what we have in the last few years. I mean, we've gone from literally working with what we could find around the house at the kitchen table to we are now, we offer online courses in order for other caregivers to teach their children and themselves how to do what we do. And we're working towards a professional course for, dentists and phlebotomists, people who do haircuts, all that kind of stuff. So, it's definitely been... We're very grateful for our team and just the people that we've had support us along the way. You kicked it?
Can't do that, Mark. You're on podcast.
We can
Just
hear the,
if
we
you're
can hear
only
the water.
listening, Mark is sucking water out of his
Sucking air out of the
and, I
the
know
water
this is shameless for me to make some of these. I don't know what you call them. Plugs, that's the word. But content on call, you and Laurel, shout outs. To have team members like y'all that can work with us. And United Healthcare, we've got amazing support. If it wasn't for United Healthcare Community Plan of Texas, big plug, y'all, we wouldn't be here. And I think it's really important to acknowledge and to express our amazing gratitude on this inaugural podcast for their support. It has not been easy, there's a lot of folks in areas that don't like what we do. They don't understand it. They think that they should have a say in it. And so for United Healthcare to continually support us has been, it's been amazing. So if you guys are wondering about what healthcare company to go with United Healthcare.
Now,
Okay.
but it's more than support, because as I understand
Yes.
it, they're working to make sure that PWP is covered in different scenarios and things, and so that
Yes.
brings access
Yes.
to families
Absolutely.
who maybe couldn't afford it, and so we talk about kind of how unsupportive the medical industry can be, and here's United making sure that
Absolutely.
more help can be provided
Absolutely.
for people with
Absolutely.
disabilities.
They are paying for practice specialists at the Multi-Assistance Center, the MAC at Morgan's. They've made a 5-year commitment for the practice specialists there, and we work with them, with the team there, and it's been such a blessing to so many people. And, when they first brought us down, the thought was that there might be 10% of the people that go to the MAC have a need. It's at least 30%, if not more. Children, adults, I know we talk about children a lot, but it's really a lot of adults, adults in the service systems,
We
things
work
like
with
that. But
children as young as 2, but adults in their 70s, I want to say.
yeah,
is the
from
oldest
2 to
we've worked
70,
with.
74, I think. But you're right, United Healthcare has shown, and again, it's the Community Plan of Texas, but they also are getting support from their national organization to do this. And so I think it really needs to be acknowledged, the financial and resource investment that they've made in Practice Without Pressure and making sure that it moves forward. You know, to have it at the Multi-Assistance Center is really amazing. And so it's Leah and it's Alan Castro who, you know, it's so gratifying to me that Alan was one of the principals that brought us down here, and now he's working with us. So, you know, to see this team that we've put together, I just knocked this podcast thing. And to see how people are stretching, you know, you guys, like you said, Matt, you've been working with us for a year, and to, you know, to see your changes in you and how you view people and what you think you can do with us. I mean, this has really been an amazing transformation. My goal, my vision has always been that someday a family caregiver, whether it's a paid caregiver, you know, a mom, dad, will be able to go to a PWP and have their child go through a Practice Without Pressure process, right? Go to Power to Marc now and go to Practice Without Pressure process, and then and then let's say they move across the country or across the world, and they can find a certified Practice Without Pressure certified professional to work with their individual so that everybody's kind of on the same page. And it's really important to do that, because restraint is not an answer. It's a temporary solution that people think has to happen, and it doesn't. It really doesn't. The more you get people when they're younger and then you work forward, but it's also not easy all the time. You know, there's a lot that's involved with it, and I'm just thankful that, you know, I've found enough people, and enough people have been put in my path to help us make this something that can be sustainable, to be taught to other people. That, you know, the team at the MAC, we're working closely together on how to do this. This podcast, you know, that we're having town halls. We're going to have town halls to see what else people might need. Because, you know, maybe there's a need for other services at centers, but do it through the PWP philosophy of no restraint. People can participate in their care. What I really say about Practice Without Pressure is we bring hope when other times, when families and caregivers have been taught hopeless. Like Rachel said at the beginning, everything they can't, they won't, they can't, they won't. Well, yeah, they can. Let's just find a different way. Right. But as a caregiver of someone with a significant disability, we're taught from the moment of diagnosis, let's put it that way, whether it's young, whether it's a traumatic brain injury, whatever.
Yeah.
Oh, you know, you got to accept they can't do this, they can't do that. And you know, I think that does everybody a disservice. I already know there's things that Marc might not do, but guess what? I'm never going to ski either. So that doesn't, you know. But
you're very realistic you know, and that's, you know, we were just celebrating Ethan, but in his practice session that we filmed the other day, it didn't go perfect.
No,
and it never will.
It never will. Perfection.
And it's not this is not a kind of one size fits all magic bullet that's going to just change your life overnight. There's going to be good days and bad days, and there's going to be times when it works and times that it does, you know, but it's about adding tools that didn't exist prior or weren't, and celebrating patience, I think, is one of the biggest steps, where it's slow down and don't rush and don't force and be, you know, be patient and give. I sing the praises of this all the time, but in PWP, the person receiving the care has a stop card. Yeah, where they can hold up a card that says stop. And just like when you were talking about Marc's dad, everybody takes a step back. Mm-hmm. And I'm trying not to back away too far from the microphone. Everybody takes a step back. And we stop. And somebody that maybe cannot communicate in words suddenly has the ability to affect the entire room.
Yeah. That's huge.
And when does that happen for them otherwise?
Well,
right?
And sometimes you have to teach people to respect that stop. You know, like with Marc, buddy, again, I keep talking about you.
He's been a great
in
sport.
Front of you. He has been. But when especially for folks that communicate without words, you hear the term nonverbal. I hate that term. It's communicate without words, but they're not heard often. And you have to really make up your mind that I'm going to pay attention. I'm going to hear what they're saying. You talk about patience. I always like to use this analogy. Rachel and Mark get sick of it, and you will too at some point, Matt.
I would never.
Think about how somebody, when braces are put on someone's teeth. Think about how braces work. They work cell by cell by cell. If you tried to take someone's teeth and force them into what they need to be in the final process, you would have a bloody mouth and broken teeth, right?
Right.
That's the same thing that happens when you restrain someone and you try to force care on them. If with braces, it's slow. It's slow and steady. It's a process. You know what to do. The person that puts those braces on knows just how far to, and there's pain with braces, but it's not broken, bloody teeth. That's an allegory for practice without pressure.
Right.
Is that it does it slowly. It's not painless. This is not trying to make people go, oh, yay, I'm going to go get a shot. Yay. No. It's helping them build their capacity so that even when they're afraid or even when they're anxious, we've worked with them and they have learned that they can do this, but also the people around them have learned that they can do this. So we use a lot of video because it's very empowering not only for the individual but for the caregiver, and you can take that video to your practitioner, to your doc, to your nurse and say, look, here they are sitting back doing this. So you are using many different ways of showing this is what I can do. So when you hear oh no, we got to restrain them, you go, no, we don't have to. It gives the caregiver, it's power to caregiver for the individual. Does that make sense?
Thank you for joining us for this first episode of the Power to You podcast, brought to you by Power to Marc.